Okay, Rivka, sorry, I'm running late. Okay, so anyways, we're going to do starting this morning. We're going to do Borchi Nafshi, which is Psalm 104, as you can see in front of you, and it's the. It's a psalm we use many times, but it's most famous as the psalm for Rosh Chodesh, and since we're coming up to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and Rosh Chodesh Nisan is like the prototypical Rosh Chodesh. It's actually the birthday of the Jewish nation. So what I want to talk about what this poem teaches us and see if we can apply some of its lessons to Rosh Chodesh. And now, before we even begin, I have to admit, this poem intimidates me. What I mean by that is, number one, it's longer. For me, King David never asked, but I would say don't go over 22 verses. 22 verses, that's enough. When you get to 35, it's like, okay, that number one, But number two, it intimidates me in two other ways. Number one, it's clear, as you can see on the sheets I gave you, I've broken up the poem into 7 parts. And the 7 parts of the poem correspond, of course, to the 7 days of the week. Okay? The problem is, as we go through the 7 days, they're not the same as Breshit. Now, as in Breshit Aleph, it's clear what happened on each day. Here in Perek Kuf Daled, there are changes, not immediately, but we'll see it very soon, that David HaMelech changes some of the order of the stuff that happened. Okay, so that, that intimidates me. The other thing that intimidates me about the poem is, and we're going to have to do this carefully. We're not going to do it yet today. Maybe we'll start next week. I think it's going to take 3 weeks to get through this poem. What happens is this poem is the poem of Rosh Chodesh. And what we're going to have to do, and it's about nature and how wonderful nature is, what we're going to have to do is compare and contrast. Okay, that's your homework assignment. Compare and contrast this poem with Psalm 92, which is the poem for Shabbat. And so hopefully, if I succeed over the next few classes, what hopefully I'm going to teach you is the concept of why this poem is teaching us something about Rosh Chodesh, and 92 is teaching us something about Shabbat, and what is the difference between the 2 days. And at this point, we don't know, but we're going to have to see how there are conceptual differences about how we celebrate nature, both on Shabbat, where we're clearly celebrating nature. We saw that in Psalm 92 a couple of weeks ago. And here we're going to celebrate nature on Rosh Chodesh, and we're going to do it differently. So the question is, conceptually, what's different about our relationship with nature, Bria, on Rosh Chodesh as opposed to Shabbat? B'vakasha. 104. Oh, I apologize. 104. Did you get a copy in front of you? Do you have a? Yeah. Okay. Okay. 104. Borchi Nafshi. Okay. Now, there's one more thing that intimidates me, and this is something I saw in the Sfat Emet. The Sfat Emet, of course, was the second Gira Rebbe. He died in 1905 in Gur, which is a suburb of Poland. Baruch Hashem, his son, made Aliyah, actually twice, once in the 20s, went back and came back in the 30s, and Baruch Hashem survived here. But he asks the following question. He makes the following point, okay? He says, Shegdulato ein chekir. The greatness of God is beyond our ability to research. I mean, we can't understand it. We can't fathom it. And if that's true, he says, "Okay, David HaMelech alav hashalom, hisig b'nafsho ki nekuda elokit sheyesh b'nafsho hu gadol ma'od." The little point of our soul is so powerful. Now, what's he talking about? He says that little point of our soul. Look at the first pasuk. The first pasuk says, "Borchi nafshi." My nefesh, we'll see how to translate that in a minute. My nefesh blesses God. Okay? So it's like there's something in me that gets it. There's something in me that gets it. Okay? However, this point of God that's in my nefesh, hu gadol ma'od yotir mikvi hayacholet hakli haguf. When it says we can't get it, that means on the physical, on the body side. But we can get it on the spiritual side. So in other words, we're supposed to be intimidated by the fact that David HaMelech is asking us to appreciate things that normally we say, I don't get it. I don't understand. So he's saying, though, your soul is able to get it. And then the Rebbe says something beautiful. The Rebbe says, that's why we try to appreciate nature both on Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. And the Rebbe says that both of those days have a more powerful spiritual connection to the world. So we read Psalm 104 and Psalm 92 on those days when we have what's called on Shabbat, Nefesh Yetera. On Rosh Chodesh, we don't call it Nefesh Yetera, but he's saying there is an expansion of our spiritual power on those days. So that's why we can get it, even though normally we can't. Okay? One more word of introduction before we actually start the poem, and that is there's a famous a German philosopher. When I go online, I look online and see comments by non-Jews as well about some of the poems we look at. And Johann Herder, who was a German philosopher in the 18th century, in the 17th century, said something I think is amazing. He said, it's worth spending 10 years to study Hebrew just so you can read this poem in its original. Wow. Now, reading Hebrew amongst intelligentsia in the 1700s was not uncommon. Most of the signers of the Declaration of Independence read Hebrew. Hebrew was a mandatory subject at Harvard and Yale into the 1830s. So these people really understood. They were both divinity schools. So it made sense that they were supposed to study Hebrew. And William Byrd of Virginia used to read this poem once a month. I don't know if he did a Rosh Chodesh, once a month in Hebrew. And it's just, and as the power of this poem is so amazing that Baruch Hashem, the world at large understands as well. Please.
But they also read this in the winter on Shabbat.
Right, in Shabbat afternoon. There's some people that recite it every day, by the way, after davening. Or some people do it before. There are minhagim that have it in the daily nusach of tefillah. Yeah. There are many minhagim around Borchi Nafshi. It's true. Okay, we are ready to actually begin. Okay, and we begin with the pasuk that's not so easy to translate. Barchi nafshi et Hashem. What translations do we have in front of us? What do we have? Bless.
So thank God for His blessings.
Bless my soul.
Thank God for His blessings.
Okay, bless my soul. Anybody else? I think that's the most common.
Bless my soul.
No. It's my soul blesses the Lord. That, I think, is the most popular translation. I want to give you Robert Alter. Robert Alter's translation is, "Oh, my total being bless the Lord. I like that translation. By nefesh, he means the totality of who I am. And I want the totality of who I am, which includes my mind and my soul and my body. All of them should be invested in praising Hashem. That's the introduction to the poem. And I like that translation. Okay? That pasuk continues. Hashem Elokai gadalta ma'od. Oh Lord, my God, gadalta ma'od. You got very great. You got so great that I can't fathom your greatness. So since I can't fathom your greatness, what I do is I can somehow experience, I can somehow access your levush, your clothing, your garb. Now remember, there are two words. We talked about this a few weeks ago when we talked about the Psalm for Friday. There are two words in Hebrew for clothing. One is beged, which hides. Beged, that's like Purim, right? You're hiding who you really are, right? From the word begida, which means to be a traitor, which means to I feel so terrible. I remember the days in the 90s leading up to the assassination of Rabbi, and it was such a shock and such a difficult time for all of us. But the signs that really bothered Rabin were the signs that said, Rabin Boged. Rabin is a traitor. And that was horrible. Here's a man that from the time he was 11 years old, never worked for anything except for the Israeli government. He dedicated everything he was. Now, you cannot like him. You can like him. You can say in the 70s, he and his wife were crooks. I'm not trying to whitewash, some of the negatives there. That's not my point. But he's a guy that, he loved the Medina. That you couldn't question his love for the Medina, and they did. And Rabin said they said it broke his heart when he'd see those signs, and they were everywhere. More, of course, here in Yerushalayim than in Tel Aviv, but they were everywhere, and it was okay.
I just want to say what good he did in Oslo. He would not sign Oslo II just before he was murdered.
Yeah, fine. I'm not here to debate.
Holy sites.
I lived in a frat in those days, and I was very disappointed. After the signs went up and he started lashing out at the settlers, I was very upset by the way he talked about us. Right? No, I know, but I mean, it was a difficult time. It was a difficult time, and this is what emotionally broke him. So now we have levush. What we're talking about now is not something that hides the reality. Wait 1 second, Jay. Not something that hides the reality of Hashem. This is something that enhances the true nature of Hashem. That Hashem clothes himself in hod v'hadar. And we have to take a look at that phrase next, please.
Why would it say the after the hod, which is a verb?
Yeah. You're going to find out in the next pasuk. Yeah. It's a very important verb, and we can't understand it till we do the next verse. On purpose, I didn't explain it, Jay. You're asking an important question. Yeah, you're asking an important question, and I'm going to give you my answer, even though I don't understand it. But I'm going to give you my answer in just a minute, but just hold on. So, in other words, we can't directly experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we can experience this aura around HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which helps us to perceive the true nature of Hashem. And that true nature of Hashem is Hod Vahadar. Hod is majesty. Hadar is beauty, splendor. Okay? In other words, we can get an inkling into the greatness of Hashem, and now comes an argument. What are the things that make up Hashem's Hod V'Hadar? So some commentaries say nature. Okay? Some, especially the Hasidic commentaries, say it's Torah. Torah is what help us to access at least a little bit the greatness of God. Okay? Some people say it's the Sfirot, and Hod V'Hadar is an explanation of one of the 10 levels in Sfirot. We don't know, and different commentaries have different opinions, but what we're saying is we can't directly experience Hashem, but we can agav. We can, by the way, experience things that help us to have an inkling into the greatness of Hashem. Now, why is the verb gadalta? Why isn't just an adjective that God is great? Why it is you made yourself great? That's explained in verse 2. And I think verse 2 is very, very important. And actually, Stephen Hawking was talking about this last Thursday on a TV show with DeGrasse Tyson at the American Museum of Natural History. I don't know if you know Dr. DeGrasse Tyson. He's terrific. He's the professor of astrophysics, and he runs the planetarium, the Hayden Planetarium at Now, so he was talking about the Big Bang. Yeah, no, right across the street from Central Park. Right. You just go in the building and wave at Teddy Roosevelt, Okay. So it says, Ote or Kitsalma. He spreads light like a cloak. And now I'm going to tell you what I think that means. At the moment of the Big Bang, there was nothing. In other words, when the explosion that we call the Big Bang took place, it was an atom-sized space. Over the next 3 seconds, a lot happened. Over the next 3 seconds, the universe came into being, and space was popping up all over the place. So from one atom, in 3 seconds, you had a huge expanse of space, and the first of the simple molecules were being created for stuff to come out in that space. That 3 seconds was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Number one, Jay, becoming big, magnifying himself. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu was small, tzimtzum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had made himself small, but at this moment, God was making space. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like taking a talit and spreading it out. And that talit is the Shemayim. And this is what Hashem was wearing as this event was unfolding and continues to unfold. And this is day one, according to David HaMelech. That it went from nothing to massive. Now, but the massive was chaotic. And we're only going to start to get order out of things towards the end. But look what it says. Ote or Again, we can't see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we can see the light that emanates from God. Again, we can't directly perceive Hashem. But what Hashem was doing when he said Vayehi Or, that was helping us perceive the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then it says, Note Shemayim Kiriyah, and it just goes on. And he just spreads out the heavens. So first Hashem is clothing himself, right? And then he's spreading out the heavens like a yiriyah, like a curtain, like a curtain. What's the better word? What does Corbin say?
He wraps himself like this with a garment. He has spread out the heavens like a veil.
A veil, yiriyah, veil. I don't like veil. It's more like it's more like a like a huge curtain. It's more like a tent. A tent. Think of like the big top. Remember? I don't know how many of you remember when we were kids. They used to, the parade came to Boston, and they had the circus, and they built the circus tent behind North Station in Boston. Used to go and watch. I'm sorry.
We didn't have a tent. We had Madison Square Garden.
Well, we also had Boston Garden, but the circus was outside.
That's where the circus was.
No, but they did it outside, and they put up a tent. It was like amazing. We'd go and we'd watch the tent go up. And that's what this is. That's the yiriyah, not a veil. It's a massive, tent top, the big top, if you will. Okay. Hamikare b'mayim aliyotav. Now this is important because what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also doing at this moment of creation is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is creating, what's an aliyah? And I'm not making aliyah. This is an aliyah, like in a building is an attic. In other words, as God is spreading first his own garment and then the tent top, it's forming a barrier to another level of existence behind it. What is that other level of existence behind it? Heaven. That's the spiritual realm. So simultaneous to the creation of the physical realm, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making this rakia, is making this barrier that is this other side, and that we have to use our spiritual energy to do everything we can to access the other side. Of course, that's where Kabbalah comes in. We're not going there right now, but this is very important. We have to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't just creating the physical universe, he was creating a spiritual reality as well. And the way we describe the spiritual reality is there's this world, and then there's the attic, the upstairs. The upstairs, that's Shemayim. That's where the Malchei Sharekta, that's where all of the wonderful spiritual realm is. And we don't in any way want to diminish the importance of either side. But King David HaMelech, is emphasizing our side of the rakia. We're talking about our side of the barrier, because that's the side of the barrier that we can access. So he's really talking more about that. And to tell you the truth, we're really barely going to mention after these first psukim, we're barely going to mention the spiritual reality. It's going to be a tremendous emphasis on what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to make this physical world work. Okay? Everybody's with me so far? Now you understand. Now I understand why this poem intimidates me. It gets a little bit easier after the first day. But it's not easy stuff. Please, Jay. I'm sorry? It means a cause or cause, or in this sense, it can actually mean make beams to separate. A koreh is a beam. So a Kadosh Baruch Hu is causing this barrier. It's what in the Chumash calls rakia. It's what the Chumash calls rakia. How come David Melech doesn't use the term? I don't know. Rakia. I'm not sure. What's very frustrating for me about the poem as we go through are the differences between the way David HaMelech describes the 7 days and the way they get described in Bereshit. I'm going to be voicing some frustration about that because, we're so used to, the norm. Okay? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Hasam avim rechuvo. Okay, he places clouds. The clouds are like rechev, are like vehicles. What do you mean? What do you mean the clouds are like? They move. They bring things, good things like rain and water, that they're vehicles for God to make delivery. The clouds are God's delivery trucks. Okay? And that's important. Okay? Hamahalech, and how do the clouds move? Hamahalech al kanfei ruach. They move on the wings of the wind. And so some people, there's a lot of Meforshim say it's talking about the angels actually are flapping wings to cause the weather to move in the right way or whatever. I don't know about that, but in other words, we see that the system is really cool. But again, he's going way beyond what Moshe Rabbeinu told us for the first day. But he feels that, David HaMelech feels, all of this is inherent in the very cryptic stuff that we were told on the first day. Please, I'm sorry. It's a ceiling, but we're talking about beams, and that's, again, separation. Yeah, right. Because the water, there's water on both sides, and I didn't. I'm going to tell you why. It was cowardice. Because it's a very important idea. But what's happening is we know there's Mayim down here and there's Mayim up there, and I just didn't want to get into what's the water up there. I don't know what it is. We know the water down here, and we know why water, of course, is nimshal for Torah. It's a metaphor for Torah. We know all of that. What exactly the mayim in heaven is? Big debates about.
It's the moisture.
Most people feel moisture's part of it. Most people feel that it's the energy that allows the spiritual, just like the water down here, somehow empowers and sustains us. That somehow there's water up there that sustains. Now, I don't know, and there's. Yeah, no. Thank you, but I'm explaining my cowardice. I'm sorry. Right. But there are Meforshim that talk about it, and and lahavdil, the water in heaven is by some people compared to like the stuff. Lahavdil, please forgive me, in mythology that the gods in heaven have different stuff that sustains them that they call XYZ. I don't care, okay, I don't want to get into that, nectar and okay. But what they're saying is lahavdil, that in heaven there is something that's comparable to water, and it does something comparable to the spiritual beings up there and how it does, I don't know.
So to speak, life-giving.
It's life-giving. Yeah. Just like the water down here is life-giving, the water up there is life-giving in a spiritual way that, that's also water. Okay?
No,
Please.
Say he doesn't follow.
Yeah, he's going way beyond.
But it's poetic license. I mean, he can do.
Of course. I'm not trying to limit the Melech. I'm trying to explain my confusion. But you'll see where it heads. You'll see where it heads.
Okay.
But we're not going to see it today. We're going to see it next week. There is a method to the madness. There's a method to the madness that we'll start to see in the second day. In the second day, we'll see there's a method to the madness. And when we get to the second day, I'm going to give you a rule that'll help us get through the rest of the poem. But I don't think you can see the rule until you get to the second day. And my goal, even though I started late, I just want to get through the first day. Okay? So let's try to do that. Okay. Oseh melachav ruchot. God's angels, God's spiritual beings make the winds. They move things. Now what are angels? Now, this is a tremendous machloket, amongst Jewish scholars. From the more rational, following the Rambam, and the much more mystical following the Ramban, and they were just, we don't know. But I'm just going to say, to me, the simplest explanation for malachim are manifestations of God's will.
It's messages.
In that case, like messages, right? Manifestations of God's will. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks, it would be good if Afghanistan had some rain today. Okay? Immediately, and a rain-giving angel appears over Afghanistan and brings us home. In other words, they are manifestations. Now, according to this opinion, which is the opinion of the Rambam, by the way, as soon as the job is done, that angel disappears. That angels do not have independent existence, but there are different models of angels. There's you got the Cadillac and you got the Kia. There are different models of angels. In other words, when you say an angel Michael, who smites people, okay, what that means is that not that there's a Michael all the time. But when a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to smite somebody, the perpetrator of God's will in that case is a Michael model angel. Okay, does everyone get that? It's not that, for me, this is the simplest approach to angelology, and I can't get any deeper than that. My mind is already spinning. Please.
They say that an angel has one job.
Right. This is what the Rambam takes this to mean. He sent for one. Who's that? A shliach? One shlichut. Once the shlichut is done, poof. But each angel, there are different models of angels. How many models of angels are there? There are about 7 major, and there are apparently thousands of minor variations on angels that have very specific roles. And in theory, a Kadosh Baruch Hu could have invented, an angel for one specific job, and it might not be needed again for 1 billion years. But that's what's going on here in Dalit. Mishartav, God's retinue, God's servants, God's pamlaya. How do you say that in English? His cortege, or not cortege, his whatever. You know what I mean? All the angels who serve, the serving angels. They're all Eish Lohet. They're all a burning fire. Because the only way we can experience, and this fits in with the Rambam, but not the Ramban. The only way we can experience either HaKadosh Baruch Hu or any spiritual being is as a flame. And the Ramban says, no. Angels can take on physical form and make believe they're humans, but not the Rambam. Rambam says no. But the Rambam says this is what was going on at the sneh, at the burning bush. That's why when first it's an angel talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a flame in the middle of the bush. Because all of these ministering angels, when we experience them as a flame. Okay? So that's what's going on here in Dalit. Okay. Hey.
In the bush, we don't get burnt.
Right. Yeah. With the Bush, we don't get burnt. Sadly, with Trump, we're getting burnt. But not with Bush. But okay, here we go. Okay, no, I'm just joking. I'm sorry. Okay. Hey, are we ready? Yasad Eretz. Yasad is a word that you wouldn't assume should exist on the first day. Where should you think that the word Yasad should first appear? Yasad means to make a foundation. The first day, everything seemed so amorphous that it doesn't seem like there was, it didn't seem like there was any, any building matter. It didn't seem like there was any, anything solid happening. Yasad, by its nature, is, Mosdot are solid institutions, right? But the first day didn't seem to have it. But in this poem, the first day already had the foundations of the earth. Because the rule, I'm going to say this, not everyone agrees with what I'm going to say, but I think it makes sense. Because the rules that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up on day one, those were the foundations for what's going to happen on the succeeding days. In other words, on day one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu invented science, physics. All of that was invented on day one. And so these rules, the physical constants of the universe, etc., and all of that stuff, okay, they were all on day one. And that is the foundation. Al mechoneha. What's mechoneha? Don't say a car. Machine, right? Mechoneha. What do we have for mechoneha? On its, I'm sorry?
It says foundation.
Established on its foundations.
Oh, no. Then he's saying that the same word, the different words. He founded the rule. He founded the world on its rules. The mechoneha were the rules, were the protocols. If it was up to me, I would say that God established the world al mechoneha according to its protocols. Nothing's going to happen after day one that's ever going to disagree with all of the material ideas, laws, rules that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instituted on day one. Rules that, most of us don't get, and science is just scratching the surface of, okay? And all the time we're finding out more stuff. But that's the mechoneha, okay? Either that or it means a car. No.
So then you say rules of physics.
Yeah. I like that. I happen to, for me, the trend I like is protocols. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu on day one set up the protocols and the rules. The protocols, that is a firm foundation. Think about it. You've got a student who never had much of a background, So, so he comes there to Israel after high school, and they put him in a program to give him the fundamentals. What do we call that program? A machon, a mechina, right? So that's what this is. It's the fundamentals. Right. And even though a lot of stuff's going to happen between here and the end of the poem, nothing is going to go against the protocols that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up on day one. Okay? Bal timot olam ve'ed. Never to move eternally. It is not just fundamental. It is immovable. It's immovable. It is what everything gets built upon. Without day one, nothing else can happen. Everything that happens after that is just following the rules, the protocols, the laws, the physics that HaKadosh Baruch Hu invented on day one. And now he's going to say something that that's really a preparation for the next day. We're going to talk a lot about water on day two next week, and next week we're going to go faster because we took. First of all, I was late and I apologize, but we had a lot of introductions of it, so we're going to go fast next week. But I do think it's going to take 3 weeks to get to this poem. But he is talking about the fact that there are things behind the scenes. And one of the things that's behind the scenes has to do with water. What's in terms of water, what's tahom? The depth. The best translation for tahom in terms of, in terms of hydrology is the aquifer. The deep below things is still water. Water is going to be fundamental in this world and in heaven. And there is, underneath all of this, floating, our world is floating on top of this this water. In the Negev, they pump a lot of water out of the aquifer. They're pumping water that's been there for millions of years, and that's now of course we're doing less of it because Baruch Hashem we're desalinating. But it says the tahom, this deep level of water, and this is both a reality but also a metaphor. The deep levels of water, because water represents a lot of deep ideas, Torah and spirituality. Kilavush kisisa, like a garment that covers it. In other words, the water is always there, even though it seems to be sometimes covered. Al harim yamdu mayim, and there is water that stands on the mountains. So he's basically saying that we should assume that as a preparation for day two, we should assume that there are two sources of water. Now, only one of them gets mentioned in the Chumash. That's the Tahom, right? But here he not only mentions the Tahom, he mentions the other major source of water, which is the water that stands on the tops of the mountains. What's the water that stands on the top of the mountain? Snow and rain, okay? So he's saying that what's going to be important on the next day that we're going to see next week, what's very important is the sources of the water, okay? And the sources of the water are the Tahom, which is water which is very, very stable and old and vintage. And then there's the new water. So obviously, guys, what's the metaphor here? If we keep water as Torah, what are we being told? There's the old Torah that is the basis that we build on, but there's new Torah all the time that renews the situation, okay? And we have to be aware. We have to be aware all the time of both. We have to be all the time of both. That there's the basic, but every generation adds something new. How can that be that every generation adds something new? Well, we know something that people before us didn't know. And so since we, like, for example, before 1963, nobody was talking about no normal people were talking about the Big Bang. But since 1963, a lot of from Jews are talking about, that's B'riat Olam, okay? In other words, we have a new way of describing day one in Chumash. And this is wonderful. And this is the way it's supposed to be, that we have the old water. Okay, we're never going to throw out the Torah of Moshe and the Torah of Rashi, okay? But we're going to continually add to it with new insights as we discover new things in this amazing world, which is what David Melech is going to talk about, how amazing this world truly is. Okay, we started.